You've probably heard the phrase, do the best you can where you're at with what you've got. It's one of those like cliche things that you hear all the time, something that your grandpa would say, right? And we all nod our head, but really, how do you apply it and what does it mean? And I want to give you a slightly different perspective on this. When we're going after things in life, personal development, personal growth, goals, and so forth, we are obviously usually setting some sort of a big goal or vision, right? And then we go after it. And so we're constantly measuring ourselves from where we're at to where we want to be. And there's a gap in between us, between where we're at, where we want to be. There's a great book called The Gap and the Gain that really breaks this down in detail, written by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Check it out if you want. What I want to point out is truly find what does actually work for you where you're at. Within the context of the next steps you need to take for the goal that you want to accomplish. Let me give you a really cheesy, simple example to bring this down to earth. One of the things that really works for me to keep my eating on point, meaning my macros, my diet, and so forth, to have a good physique, is that I walk shirtless almost every single day, or bicycle shirtless, through the busiest street in my city, down to the waterfront, walk the waterfront, and back. For me, whether it's because of vanity, ego, competition, whatever reasons you want to try to chalk up to it, for me, knowing that I'm going to be seen by a lot of people while I'm shirtless is very motivating for me to keep my eating, my diet, and my nutrition habits on point. It's just how I am. This is an example of what I'm talking about, where we can philosophize and spiritualize and hypothesize, whatever, theorize all the different ways that I could be or should be. However, I also simply accept who I am today, right now, where I'm at right now, and I'm using what works for me right now. Maybe one day I won't care. But right now, that's motivating for me to know that I'm out there and that I've got a physique I've worked really hard for, and that now I can go out and I can look better than most of the men walking the street. I'm competitive. My nature is competitive. I'm very competitive. Quietly so, but very competitive. I accept that. Is that the highest and best, most ideal version of me? Maybe, maybe not. I'm open to it not being that one day. But again, I'm using what works for me right now. I enjoy getting the looks of admiration from women, the smiles. I enjoy getting the head nods from other dudes who are putting in the work. I do enjoy the look of envy and hate and the random shit talking that some men will start doing on the street to their friends, making sure that I hear it because I'm walking around shirtless. It was never a fit guy who ever does that. Whether it's my ego, my vanity, whatever, it works because my objective, my goal is a world-class physique for somebody who's just a recreational lifter, non-competitor, 100% natural, right? So for me, that's the big goal. There's a gap between where I'm at and where I want to be. And what works for me right now, doing the best I can where I'm at with what I've got, is I've got a bloody competitive, I've got a very competitive nature. Okay? Harness it. Don't fight your biology. Harness it. Harness it in a way to where who you are and how you are naturally pulls you towards your goal instead of fighting your biology with what should be. So speaking of that, there's a lot of tips, tricks, tactics, and techniques out there that we'll read in books, listen to in podcasts, find in courses, videos, and so forth. And I call them the 4 horsemen. And just like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, they can either create a lot of problems for you, or like 4 horses tied to a chariot all working together, they can really pull you towards your goal, towards victory. Tips, tricks, tactics, and techniques. So many times we start missing the forest for the trees, or we let the tail wag the dog. And in our journey of personal development, personal growth, and so forth, we start getting excited over the tips, tricks, tactics, and techniques in and of themselves. And we go down these rabbit holes about these things instead of using these things that we learn to move us towards our actual ultimate goal. And so if you start getting into the tips, tricks, tactics, and techniques for the sake of just learning more, that will create an energy of derailing you, distracting you, and delaying you. However, if the tips, tricks, tactics, and techniques that you learn, you apply to where you're at right now, today, with what you've got in the best way you know how, now they will empower you, energize you, and elevate you towards your goal. I'll wrap up with this concept. There's a book called, There's a book called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. I have reread this book. This is a new edition, obviously, or a new copy, but I have reread this book front to back 3 times or more in terms of referencing it as a field manual constantly. It's one of my top 3 recommended and gifted books on self-identity work and transformation work. And in one of his previous books, Power versus Force, Hawkins has this now famous scale, this chart of the frequency that certain emotions operate at. I believe apathy is at the very bottom at like 20. And then I believe it's shame, right? And then it goes up to, I forget what else is right above that. Guilt, I think. Then I think it's anger. Then I think it's desire. And then I think it's pride. And then I think it's courage. And courage is the first neutral vibration or energy signature where you've gone completely from negative to at least neutral. And then there's a whole bunch above that are positive. Willingness, I think, is the next one right above courage. And then there's reason, love, enlightenment, a whole bunch of others. Here's my point. Wherever you're at on the chart, or let's say you're on the chart below courage. So let's say somebody's operating in shame. They're just generally operating in a life where it's filled with shame, etc. You can read the books for more understanding how this works. Obviously, big goal would be to get to at least courage, if not willingness or reason, or even a little higher. Ultimately being just love and enlightenment, right? Being an avatar. But here's what I tell people, and I've done this with friends. I've noticed that they're wrapped around the axle about certain things in their life, and they get into this rut. And in my mind, when I look at it, it's like if they're at guilt or apathy or shame, just getting up to anger is a win. You with me? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Is it positive? No. Is it even neutral? No. Is it positive? No. Is it the ultimate goal? No. But is it a move in the right direction? Yes. Because at least with anger, there's enough energy and anger to get somebody to start taking some action, to get into motion, to cut things off that no longer serve, right? That whole enough is enough. Right? Kind of a thing. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so at times in my life, I've realized I'm in a rut and I'm like, listen, getting to anger is a win. Do the best you can where you're at with what you've got. And this is a win right now. I've helped friends do this too, where I see that they're struggling. I'm like, man, if I just help this person get pissed off and angry about this whole circumstance in these situations, that in and of itself will get momentum going. And so I just want to say this. Yes, we have ultimate big goals. Yes, there's the ultimate standard, and you should be holding yourself to a high standard every single day and moving close, and ideally moving closer and closer towards your ideal, your outcomes, and your goals. Just don't forget that you have to start somewhere. And that somewhere is accepting who you are right now, where you're at right now, and doing the best you can where you're at with what you've got and getting into motion, taking that action. And if walking shirtless down a busy street is what does it for you at the current state of where you're at today in that department of your life called physicality or physique, then so be it. Use that. Are you with me? If you're at a low vibration energy and anger or pride or desire is better, get to there. It's a win. And it trends towards the direction you want to go. So, yes, I know that there's so many epic books, epic ideals, especially when you really get into like personal development, personal growth, spirituality, right? Really great, grand ideas and ideals. And I'm all for that. And at the same time, while being in the clouds, don't forget about your ground game and being in the dirt, because we are both a spiritual being and a physical being. You dig? There is power in the acceptance of where you're at right now, or I should say where you've been, where you're at right now, who and how and what you are right now, and using that in some ways as who you are now to get ahead. So, do the best you can where you're at with what you've got. Hopefully this helps.